All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, taping this on a Tuesday afternoon. First timer joining the program, black and white. Maybe Walton is unveiling some black and white Raiders logo and color scheme this fall. The blue, white, and red. Maybe it's going away. I don't know. We'll find out. Daniel Brunner is here, head football coach of the Walton Raiders. Daniel, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Very good. Thanks so much for having me. We appreciate you getting us the opportunity to show off our program and what we're doing over here at Walton High School.
Yeah, well, are we getting the black and white? What is the black and white look we got going here on youtube.com/Chase Thomas podcast?
A little bit of our off-season workout gear here. All right, this is our Steel Raider logo, so a little bit different, but it's something the kids like, so we've embraced it.
I like it. It seems like that's just in all across the board. It's just a clean look, the black and white. You can't go wrong with black and white, black and silver, anything like that. You can't go wrong. Well, how is the off season going? Do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy the time getting away, kind of starting from scratch, getting to know the new kids, moving on up, and kind of getting adjusted to who's going to be here, who's not? How do you approach the off season? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's actually probably my favorite time of the year, to be quite honest with you. It's when we get to experience the most growth from our young men. So, there's no worry of if I'm getting enough snaps or how many balls I'm getting or how many targets I'm getting or who's starting at this position or that position. It's just really all about the process for us. So day in and day out, we're in the weight room. We do 2 days a week in the morning right now, speed, agility, quickness, and finish that with good competition. This morning it was family lunges as the competition and the finisher, which is this morning we did about 54 yards forward and 54 yards backwards for our team comp, and just watching the kids struggle with that weeks ago and where they're at right now is fulfilling in itself. And then watching where they are right now and where they end up by the time we get to spring football is super fulfilling. So, I love this time of the year because it's so process driven. It's all about the growth of these young men, developing our players and, not just physically, but just in all areas that we're trying to get after. So the athletic piece, the academic piece, the social and the spiritual piece. So we're really trying to hit all four of those phases of our program really hard in this part of the season, or this phase of the season, if you will, because we kind of break it down into 4 phases. But, you get into season, you start playing games, it gets harder and harder to really work on some of that because you're worried about scheme, you're worried about the plan for Friday night, so on and so forth. So love this time of the year, really enjoying it. This is a great group. They worked extremely hard up to this point, so excited to keep this thing rolling. We're off on winter break next week, so we're testing in the weight room this week and having a little competition in there. So it's been fun. Been off to a good start.
Do you partake? Do you get involved? Are you doing the lunges 54 steps forward and back? Are you doing it? Or are you just leading?
We do, but I do it with my old man workout group in the morning. So we're meeting at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. depending on the day, and we're getting our own work in.
5 a.m. Are you a coffee guy? What are we doing in the morning to get ready to go and do some lunges at 5 a.m.?
We wake up, have a little shake, and get after it. Not a pre-morning rituals before I get in the weight room. It's just getting in there and start moving, getting that work in, getting a little sweat going, and that's how I start my days. I think just from a mental perspective, I'm not the best me I can be if I don't do those things. So I've got some kids that come in and get extra work in with us in the morning, which is pretty cool right now. I think when you got a culture of kids trying to get additional work in outside of what you're asking them to do, it's pretty special. So I got some coaches that are in there with me, some other guys in the community, but just trying to hold each other accountable, keep moving. I don't want this thing to slow down for me. I'm trying to do this for a long time, so got to keep this body right.
I like it. Are you a coffee guy? What do we do in the morning? Do you need any caffeine, or is it just shakes for you every day?
We'll have some coffee after I get done with my workout. So we'll work out. This morning worked out, went out and trained the kids 6 to 7, got done with them. Got up to the classroom and had a cup of coffee to get my day going there. So it's about 8:30 before I have my first cup.
Okay, I like it. You mentioned the 4 phases. So what are the 4 phases for your program?
I'll just take you from where we're at right now. So phase 1 is this winter phase that we're in, which encompasses 5 days a week in the class period. So during the day, we're in the weight room, working off a conjugated method, and we do some other things in there, but that's part of this. And then we start doing 2 days a week in the morning after MLK. That's all speed, agility, quickness work. So one of those days is going to be acceleration, deceleration day. The other day is going to be all change of direction. We're off for winter break next week, and we come back the following week. Everything stays the same except we start adding in afternoons. So Tuesday afternoon will be an offensive day, Thursday's a defensive day, and that's all like very fundamental. We don't have any footballs out there. It's all just basics. How do I get in the stance? What kind of steps am I taking? Really working through skills and drills early on and get closer to spring football. And that's where we start getting into the actual scheme. Phase two would be spring football. So we go through spring football, continuing on with our lifting. We'll do 3 weeks essentially of our spring football phase. It is the smallest phase of our off season. We'll cap that off with a game, and then we roll off into summer. That's phase three. June and July, we go Monday through Thursdays. Typically get most of our work in the morning. That'll also include 7-on-7s or OTAs with other schools, padded camps. We do a lineman camp. And during all these phases, we're trying to build in as much team building, character building, leadership stuff that we can within our program. Because again, we get to the fall, some of that stuff falls off. So, you get into the fall and then we're playing the season, so we're off and rolling in our 6 days a week for the kids. They obviously got practice Monday through Thursday, Friday's the game, and they come in Saturday mornings for breakfast, film, Coach Brunner special yoga, and they're out for the weekend. So that's kind of where we've gotten this thing to right now. It's been good for us. I feel like it works for this place, and I don't think every school's going to have the same exact yearly plan, but what we do here has worked for us pretty well. So it just don't want to make too many drastic changes, but we're constantly trying to adjust. Just talk about in season. One thing we did this year, because I feel like we're not as constrained on time in the off season, we can do some of the character ed stuff. Well, we don't have that much time, so I brought somebody else in this year that was a mental health coach, and he spent a day Wednesdays with us where we were going through some mental health lessons. First was like mental health 101. What is mental health and why is it important? All the way through strategies to cope with anxiety, stress, pressure, performance under pressure, and then took that all the way into the playoffs. That was really good for us. So, we're just trying to add value to what we're doing, but not change dramatically from what we've had success with over the last 6 years.
That's really cool. And I hope that's a growing trend just across sports and especially at the high school level, and just how much pressure these kids are under for a very short amount of time. The high school football season, it comes and it goes so quick, and they spend so much time gearing up for it. And I'm not going to let you go past this Coach Brunner special yoga. What is that? What is the special yoga we're talking about here?
So we do yoga on Fridays, but we do it with a couple of yogis that I bring in. So a couple ladies in the community. Shout out to Peach Out Yoga. They do an awesome job.
Okay.
And that's a little bit more of your traditional yoga. It's more of a low-key yoga. So I don't know if you're familiar, but there's power
No.
yoga and there's hot yoga. This is more of a flex relaxation. We're trying to get their bodies into a parasympathetic state when they walk out of the room on Fridays so they can be ready for the game Friday night. On Saturday mornings, it's more of my brand of yoga, which is going to be more of a little bit of a power yoga, if you will, mobility work.
Okay.
And all we're trying to do there is get their bodies moving, get blood flowing again. And I have that as built-in time for me with the kids. So it's either we're licking our wounds because we had a tough night the night before, or we're having to pop their heads because we're a little bit too high in the sky after a big win or something. So it's kind of down regulation, getting our bodies, our minds back in a good place so we can come and eat breakfast and get into our film and be in a good mental space. So I joke with them. It's not our easy yoga. It's gonna be a little harder. We're gonna do some things a little differently with that, but kids have fun with it. It's been good. I believe in the yoga, not just for the kids. I try to partake myself as much as I can. I think it's something that hopefully will keep me doing this for a long time.
That's cool. I like that. I'm not gonna let my wife listen to this podcast because she's a yoga person, and she's gonna be like, "See, he did it. You can do it. Like, you can jump in there."
That's right.
I got to be careful. Reflecting on last season, Coach, what did you enjoy most about coaching the 2022 Walton Raiders?
I think it was the stick to itness that group had. We had some tough losses. Talk Mill Creek. I mean, the eventual state champion.
Yeah.
We had that game all but one in the Corky Kell Classic to open in the Benz, and all we got to do is get a first down and run the clock off, and we win the game. Unfortunately, we had a sophomore error at the tight end spot and had a false start. Ends up sitting us behind the sticks, stops the clock, and we ended up having to punt the ball away. They score on a last minute possession. We lost to North Cobb, another tough team that we didn't play our best game. I don't feel like I had the guys as prepared as we needed to be. We had some injuries, and I think having guys out consumed us more than it should have. And losing those two games, I think, really kind of propelled us to get to the back end of the season and having the belief that we needed to have, because we understood if we do things the right way, if we do things throughout the week the right way, it'll show up on Fridays and we're going to win the games. And the weeks that we didn't put all that together, we ended up having some struggles. But, our kids never batted an eye. There was never any doubt about what we were going to do as a program. And it just kept building, and I think as we went down and the season was set up the way it was, we played that first playoff game on a Saturday. It was a weird, funky day. It took us a minute to get going, but again, there was no doubt in what we could do. And we knew we were going to win that game. I was trying to set up our schedule where we could have as much time between that game and the second round as possible, being that we're playing on a Saturday. It messed with
Mhm.
our schedule. But there was never a minute where our kids doubted we were going to go over to Buford and beat them. And I think the reason why is that they just stuck to the plan. They stuck to the process. They believe in what this program is all about. And it's really helped us out throughout really the 6 years being here. There's been some, I would say, down years. We were 6-6, but still made it to the Sweet 16. And I think there's a lot of coaches and programs that love to be making it to the Sweet 16, and that's where we've kind of set the standard for us. But I think just the belief in what we're doing around here allows for those kids to, when times do get tough, when we do have some lapses in our performance, they don't question what we're doing. There's no pointing fingers. They just stick to what we believe in our process to how we get to Fridays and be successful on Fridays. And that's probably what I was most proud of. I think we had a lot of selfless guys last year. Had some seniors that, weren't on the field as much as they probably would have liked to have been, but they were the epitome of what you want of a practice guy, giving you the best looks in practice day in and day out, knowing that I'm probably not going to get on the field that much. So I just think the selfless attitude, the stick to itness of a team last year was why we were able to have success. And even going to that Carrolton game, the Buford game previous week may have taken a little bit out of us. But golly, going into halftime, we're in a situation where we could have gone up 7 going into half, getting the ball out of the half, and we turned the ball over with 2 minutes left. They end up scoring, and we fumbled the ball right out of half. So it could have been a 14-point swing one way, went the other way. But our kids never doubted. They kept fighting their tails off. At a game that kind of got out of control, we got it back within one score. And we just couldn't muster enough up at the back end of the game, but it wasn't for a lack of effort and concerted effort and mental fortitude, because our kids are just tough, resilient boys. And at the end of the day, you can, hang up your whistle at the end of the season knowing, yeah, we left some out there, but we got about as much out of this group that we possibly could.
That Carrollton kid is special. Just watching he is just a sophomore. It's just I tell folks, like, I'm here in East Tennessee now, and just growing up, I went to Parkview. Full disclosure, unfortunately, Coach, not a Walton guy. I went to Parkview, so there is some level of bias here. But um, watching a lot of those games growing up and just the quarterback play, and it's just you don't see many of those guys, especially at the sophomore level, where I'm like, I don't even know what you do with somebody like that and what he's going to look like junior and senior. What was it like preparing for him for a full week?
Yeah, he's pretty polished. I mean, I just
Yeah.
think as I watched Carrollton, I knew they were the most complete team we had seen since Mill Creek. They really
Mm,
were. And he's a big reason why. I mean, he runs that offense so effectively, and it's not just, I'm controlling the game. He can make throws, and he made throws in tough windows all night long against us. And I think what was so tough in that game defensively is we just couldn't win third downs. And
mm,
whether that was him making a good throw in a tight window on an RPO, or just pulling one out and throwing it up to his 6'6" receiver, but putting it on target where it needed to be, or heck, even pulling it on a third down and catching us off the edge for a gain of 3 or 4. He just manages the game really well. His talent is probably as good as anybody I've played against
mm.
or coached against. But he has a knack for the game of football and understands his reads, understands how defenses are going to work. Extremely talented young man. I mean, he's one that you're going to see play a lot of football as this thing goes on. And I'm talking Saturdays and probably into Sundays. He's probably on the same trajectory. You've seen some of these kids out of the state of Georgia who are having really good careers, on from Saturdays into Sundays. And I think that's one thing where Georgia doesn't necessarily probably get as much credit as it should, but the talent of quarterbacks coming out of this state is really doggone special. I mean, I think Georgia's got the most complete group of talent, from skilled to linemen to quarterbacks to specialists, I mean, of any state in the nation. And our quarterbacks have been pretty gosh darn good that have come out of this state in the last decade.
Yeah, all across the board. I mean, just the recruiting in the state alone is just huge. I mean, Tennessee, majority of their classes. I mean, this last class, most players came out of the state of Georgia. I mean, that's just where you got to start in the state of Georgia. It's a highly competitive league. I will say, Class 7A in the state of Georgia is not like anything else you'll see elsewhere. And I mean, it's all Greater Atlanta classification. Like what, four South Georgia schools total, and then everybody else was Greater Atlanta in 7A. Is that right?
Yeah, there's 5 South Georgia
Five.
now, but
Okay.
yeah, hmm
I mean,
and everybody
it's
else in the
it's all
metro.
Greater Atlanta. That's just, you don't have to look far. Everybody's clumped together, but there's just talent everywhere. So it's a highly competitive league. I'm curious though, because like going back to North Cobb for a second, like was that something that was helpful for your group? Like, did you like that midseason blip? Because when you look at the course of your season, like you said, you open up, you go toe to toe with Mill Creek, who ended up winning the state title, and you were right there, and you proved that you could hang with the biggest of the biggest, and like you were real contenders. And then you have this weird blip at home because it was a home game, score 7 points, and I don't know, was that one of those games where you're like, maybe this is kind of like, because you were talking about getting too high some days on Saturdays. Is that like one of those games where you're like, yeah, it stinks to lose in that way to North Cobb and stuff like that, but like that was a nice wake up call that got us ready to go. Like, oh, we're not just gonna walk into the quarterfinals, semifinals, and just be ready to go come playoff time. Like, you have to take care of business each and every week. Was that kind of how you saw it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I look back to kind of just backtracking the history of this thing. 2 years ago, we went down to Colquitt and lost in the second round, a game that we
Mm,
had a chance to win. Well, I mean, it's a learning experience. The next year, we go down there in the first round and crush them. I mean, it's over before halftime. So I think for me, I'm looking at that North Cobb game in the sense of like that. We've got to learn from that. And what is the lesson that can be learned for us? I think we are too concerned with the moment. I think we are too concerned with the opponent and not enough concerned about what we needed to do as a collective group. And it showed up. I mean, 3 4th downs we let them convert, and 2 of them
mm,
turned into touchdowns. We had a touchdown that got called back on a little bit of a ticky tacky deal, but it got called back, and we did not respond very well. Again, we were letting our emotions get the best of. We were getting caught up in stuff that wasn't in our control, and that's when you get beat. Is when you stop focusing in on those controllables. So as I look forward to this thing and really how can it help us moving into next year is we can never let our situation from an injury standpoint, our personnel standpoint, get in the way of putting out the best product on the field. We cannot let the opponent and our history with that opponent get in the way of our performance on the field on Friday nights. And I think most importantly for us is we haven't won a region championship in 4 years now, 5 years now. And so
mm.
we've got to get back to where we're winning region championships and getting ourselves into a better situation into the playoffs. Now, we've been to the quarterfinals, been to the final four, so we've been able to find ways, but it sure does make it easier if you come in there as a 1 seed as far as the matchups were concerned. And so I just want it to be a learning experience for this program. But yeah, I just think there was a lot that went on that night that we can learn from. But yes, it did help us in the back end of the season. I think it did help us realize and recognize the focus and where things needed to be as we went into a game on Friday nights. We probably don't beat Buford if we don't win that game.
Mm.
And I think that's some of the stuff when you look back at it that it sucked when it happened, but it probably paid dividends down the road. And that game right there in itself, when you go back and look at the top tier 7A, I mean, it was us and North Cobb versus Buford and Mill Creek in the second
Mm.
round of the playoffs. I mean, I don't know that you're going to get a tougher matchup, and those are 4 teams out of just 2 regions in the state, and
Yep.
so I think when you saw what North Cobb did with Mill Creek, they struggled mightily. High school football sometimes is about matchups, and
Hmm.
I think that we would have matched up better with Mill Creek had we seen them again. And kind of like we did with Buford. But at the end of the day, yes, it paid dividends for us. But I just hope long term it teaches us lessons where next year we'll be able to perform in that situation and not put ourselves behind the 8 ball as we're getting into the playoffs.
Was Buford the biggest vibe this season? Was that like the strongest, like just not, maybe not interest is not the right word, but like the most intrigue and just what Buford's become? Because I mean, I don't even know if a lot of folks understand just like how insane it is for anyone who grew up in the state of Georgia to see Buford in 7A. Because like me being gone, I'm just like, they're moving up quick. Like they're moving. Oh, they're in 7A. They're playing with the big boys now. Like this is the Darius Walker, Justin Roper days where they're just dominating class single A, 3A. It's just it's a different deal. And I mean, they're building, it's a huge school now, but like I imagine with how big Walton is and how big Buford is, that was a pretty intense, pretty fun week of preparing and just a fun matchup that night, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody had probably crowned Buford as the king of 7A right when they
Yeah,
moved up, and that was the big test. Can they do it at that level? I mean, the number of state championships they've won and played for is it's kind of unbelievable.
they're kind of the villains
Um,
of 7A, right?
yeah, and if you look at the number of Power Five kids they got out there, I mean,
Mhm,
it is absolutely unbelievable. But
mhm,
I felt like we went over there as one team, as a collective group, whereas they were over there as one individual playing
mhm,
as a team, and that's really what helped us as adverse situations happened in that game. We were able to overcome some of them, and they weren't. But I joke with people all the time. I was like, I think most of the people in the state were pulling for us that week, but I don't think anybody had us picked that week. So,
mhm.
yeah, I'd have to say that was probably, there's people around here like that. It's the biggest program win in school history, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it is or it isn't. It was a second round win for us.
Mhm,
Ultimately, we're trying to win a state championship over here. That'll be the biggest win in school history for me. But it was a fun one. It created a lot of buzz and excitement. I think it definitely helped us continue to build our brand and what we're able to do over here. And that's kind of where our motto comes from: ball down, ball out. Put the ball down, anybody, anywhere, any opponent, anytime. And our job is to go out there and ball out. And if we prepare properly, we'll do that. And so I just, it solidified a lot of what we're trying to accomplish over here from a cultural standpoint, building belief in our community as well as our locker room.
What was something in the summer that you anticipated? Like, when you think back to, like, how do you put in the summer installs, you get a good feel for your roster, we're getting ready to mid early August for, the regular season. I'm curious, like, now it's, mid-February, what did you get wrong, or maybe you had thought you had pegged about this team that ultimately did not turn out to be the case?
I thought we were going to be healthier, to be quite honest with
Mm,
you, and I thought we had the depth to maintain some things if we did get dinged up. Not to say that I believe you're going to be healthy throughout the season. I think to have a long run in high school football, you got to have some things go your way. The ball's got to
mm,
bounce your way. You got to stay healthy. You got to be lucky with the draw you get as the playoffs happen, because again, matchups will occur. But we had more dings on certain kids that were hampering the team,
hmm,
more so than I ever thought was going to happen as we went through summer, because I thought we had developed a lot of great depth, which I feel like we did. We just didn't have enough guys ready to replace and step up and take on that responsibility of being the guy.
mhm,
And that's one of the things we're going to work hard to do this offseason. As we go back into this next deal, we've got a lot of kids returning, a lot of starters returning. Well, my plan this spring as we go through summer is to make sure that those kids that are the next man up are more prepared than they were last year. If
hmm.
we're asking a kid to go in at free safety, in game three, but he hadn't started yet. Is he as prepared as we could possibly get him? That's not going to happen if we don't do what we need to do in the spring and in the summer. So, I would say that piece right there is one of the things that I have the most control over, is spending more time, making sure we're getting more development of those guys. So when we do have to call their number, they're ready to rock and roll. We had, a kid went in the Carrolton game, and I look up and he's in slot because our slot receiver went out. And I was like, what the hell is he doing on the field?
Mhm,
And, I said that we didn't have them as prepared as I would have liked. Well, that kid showed up in the Carrollton game and did a really good job in the
mhm.
15, 20 reps that he got. We need all of our kids to get there, and we need them to get there so I'm not, or the position coach or coordinator is not like, why the hell is that kid on the field? So that in itself, I think, is one of the biggest areas we're trying to work on, is continue to push our player development, get more guys ready to be out there on Friday nights.
I like it. What do you think which group did you lean on the most? Which position group do you think was the strongest that you were never worried about? Like, this was our bread and butter, and I have no qualms. I'm not worried at all every single Friday night.
I think our offensive line,
Hmm.
and the crazy part about it is we were starting three guys that were about 200 pounds in 7A football, which is absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
And we went from the year before, the group the year before was, they were all over 6 foot. We were probably averaging about 6'3", 260 across the line. I mean, we had a
Yeah.
6'6", 300 pounder. I mean, we were absolutely huge. We'll
Mm,
we'll we'll be back there this year with a bigger line, but I never worried about that group showing up. And we didn't have a
mm,
lot of depth on the offensive line. The sixth and seventh linemen were actually defensive starters that would come over if necessary, but that group stayed healthy. That group played so tough week in and week out. I never worried about them, and they were the most undersized, over challenged group throughout the year, and they just kept showing up week in, week out and giving the quarterback time. And, there's no secret to why we had a a 1,000-yard receiver at tight end, 2 800-yard receivers in our slots, an outside receiver with 700 yards, and a running back with 1,500 yards. I mean, the offensive line has got to make that all come together, and they did a hell of a job with that last year.
Who in the spring are you expecting to step up? Who are some names, some guys, rising juniors, seniors that you're really excited about their spring ball and getting ready for this fall?
And I got to say, I'm really excited about Wendell Gregory. He's one of our probably most touted players. He's just a genetic freak. I mean, he's been blessed. He is an awesome young man. He has had probably the best January and February of any kid I can remember, just from a work standpoint. And not that he wasn't doing a good job last year, but he has turned this thing into a new level. And we're going to move him and do some different things than we've done with him in the past, which I'm really excited about. So I think, got a great linebacker in Ashton Woods, kid's a stud, but we're going to do a lot of the similar stuff that we did with him the last 2 years and know he's going to do it really well. Well, moving Wendell, I think, can make us a little bit more dynamic on defense. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about moving forward into this next year. But, golly, we bring so many good players back. I'm just so excited. There's not many years where you get to walk back into a season after you have a quarterfinal run, feel like you still left some out there, but you kind of got the most out of your guys, but let's get more out of this group this year. And so, I'm excited for this senior group as a whole, because I don't know that I've ever been around as many football junkies, as many guys that love the work, as many guys that are trying to fight for us to continue to work on our accountability day in and day out, from helping us coaches hold each other accountable to helping the coaches hold the kids accountable to the kids hold each other accountable. At the end of the day, the more accountable we are to each other, this program, this team, the more success we're going to have this fall. And when that's player led, that's really, really special. And I think that really pushes you to another level.
When you look at what will change with the identity next season, like if you're, for the Walton fans watching this and listening to this, what will they be most surprised about seeing with the 2023 Walton Raiders on the field on Friday nights versus what they saw in 2022? What will be the biggest stylistic change you anticipate?
I hope offensively we keep doing what we've been doing. We're averaging about 40 points a game. We're very, very balanced. We're multiple.
I need 41, Coach. I need 41.
So we're going to work the field and everything. Defensively, I think one thing I'd want to see is get more consistent, consistent play throughout the year. I mean, we go over to Kennesaw Mountain, who is averaging 40-something points a game, and we hold them to 7. I mean, they end up scoring 14, but we give up the last 7 late when our backups are in. And, but that was really rewarding. We've got to get more consistent. That's got to be game to game, week to week, and not have a great week here and an okay week the next week. And I will say this, defensively, I want to see us being more dynamic than we were last year. More takeaways, more explosive plays on defense, more TFLs, more sacks, more interceptions. We've got to do a better job in that, because I really do think where we're at right now with the game of football, you better be winning the red zone, and you better be forcing guys to punt the football away, right? I mean, they're going to score points, but the more of those third downs you can win, and now, to be quite honest with you, it's not just third, but it's third and fourth down, because so many guys are going for it on fourth, and you got to force field goals in the red zone. Like, if you can't do those things and force takeaways, you're not going to win versus the best offenses in the state, or you're going to be a shootout and hope to have a chance to have the ball last. It's not the world we want to live in. We want to get in a situation where we can be more dynamic on defense and force our opponents' offenses to be a bit more limited. And how do you do that? You take the ball away from them. You don't let them have the ball as much of the game. And when they do get in the red zone, you tighten up. And again, you force those field goals. And so those are the areas where I want to see us get better. I think, special teams wise, our kicking game's got to get better and more consistent. That was one area where we've been really, really strong throughout the past. I mean, we really always have been. And didn't quite have the kicking game where I wanted it this year. So, I've got a lot of improvement to make in a lot of areas, but I just think the dynamic piece of our defense has got to up itself. And then special teams wise, our kicking game has got to elevate tremendously.
We'll end here. The new Colts head coach, it kind of speaks to what you were just talking about, especially on defense. With the bend don't break, and it's less about the yardage. It's more about what you do in the red zone, more about getting those third down stops. It's more about not even really time of possession anymore, nearly as much with Tennessee. It doesn't matter. You can keep us 16 minutes of time of possession. It doesn't matter. Like that Kentucky game 2 years ago, I think they had like 16 minutes possession. Kentucky had like 40, and it didn't matter. Like Tennessee still won. It just doesn't matter. It was where the game is in a lot of ways. But he said something interesting, and I wonder if you agree with it, and this is something that you've had to adapt. He said, we're going to pass to score points run twin football games. Is this something that you also believe in? And do you think this is one of those things? Because when you have just a football conversation with other football fans and stuff like that, that's just that you hear the run the damn ball stuff all the time. Like that's every fan. I'm sure Walton fans tell you, like, Coach, we gotta run the ball more. You just gotta drive it home. I don't know. We got these big offensive linemen. Let's run the ball. We're throwing a little bit too much. I just imagine like that's going to be the case even when every head coach and every offensive mind's like, no, you pass to set up the run. Is that kind of where you're at, or are you still? Is it a little bit different in high school still?
I think the game's evolved for sure. I mean,
Mm,
I think it depends on your opponent, to be quite honest with you. I don't go into any game with the same mindset as the previous opponent because they're all different. There's
mm,
some weeks where we're going to have to throw the ball to set up the run and vice versa.
mm,
Now, saying all that, we are going to run the gosh darn football. I mean,
mm,
that's just going to be in our MO. We're going to make sure that we dictate what we do on offense. And we've been very successful at that. You know, in the past, we've run the ball to open up the pass more.
mm,
And I think where the game has shifted now, you know, you've got to open some defenses up and force them out of these one-on-one man-to-man situations and make them pay if they're going to get into those where they're going to load up the box.
mm.
But I am going to hang my hat until the day I'm done coaching this game and believing that the way to effectively win and win deep is being able to run the football. But if you can't do both effectively, you're never going to win a championship. You're always going to be one-dimensional when you play the best of the best, you know. And if you're balanced against the worst teams, but you can't be balanced against the best teams, you're not going to have that success. And you know, our running back this year, what I say, at 1,500 yards
Mm-hmm.
this year, was right behind, I think, the second or third in the state in touchdowns. He had 80-something yards rushing against Buford, and they were the toughest, hardest yards you've ever seen. But we were going to be strong in our convictions and believing that we needed to run the football effectively in that game, and we did. And it opened up some passing opportunities for us that allowed us to make sure we could run away with it. But you know, I do think the game is evolving, but when it's all said and done, if you cannot run the football effectively, you're not going to win championships. So yeah, and a long way to tell you you're right. I think he's pretty right on what he's saying there.
I like it. Coach, how do the good folks support the Walton Raiders this spring and heading into the summer? What can they look out for? What can they do to support your program?
Yeah, check us out at Walton Recruits on Twitter and at Walton Raiders on Instagram. If you want to follow us there, a lot of cool information, a lot of cool things we like to do to highlight our young men. You know, come out to Raider Valley. We're hosting their spring game. If anybody's in the area, we got Roswell over here for the spring game, which is actually my alma mater. So we like to get
There
those
you
guys over
go.
here as
I
much
love
as we can
Chris.
and duke
He's a
it out
great
with them.
interview. Chris is a good dude. I like Chris.
He's a good guy, man. So he actually comes out of the same coaching tree that I come out of, and
There you go.
worked for the same guy I worked for, and so I had some good memories over there at Roswell. Actually, we lost to Parkview my last high school game when Frank Cord and those guys were on
That's a
that run
shame.
streak. So
That's a
yeah.
shame.
I'm
I
sure
hate
you're
that for you.
brokenhearted.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I was definitely there. Like it's funny. Small world. I was definitely there. I mean, it's yeah, it does break my heart though. That's how it had to end for you, Coach.
Yeah, no doubt. I bet. Just
Three-peat.
fuels the
It's a
fire.
man. It spoiled me, kind of like it spoiled Walton fans. Like you went undefeated, right? Your first year, didn't you go 10-0 in
Yeah.
the regular first year? Yeah, it's
Yeah, we did. We did.
there you go. Coach, wish you nothing but the best. Enjoy this spring, your favorite time of year. Now the Walton fans know this is your bread and butter. And happy Valentine's Day for you and yours. I guess that's what you say. I don't know. That's what you do. It's that kind of day. Do something nice. And I will talk to you again very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, man.